Hello, so good evening. This is the third day of the SL VBA training session. So for today, you dig into the VBA program control statements and the ActiveX control in SL. So let us look at the VBA program control statements. Now, in SL, it is important for any program to perform some calculations under specific conditions. And the same thing can be done in VBA. But then in VBA, those program control statements, there are two major options. So the first is the conditional execution statements, and then we have the loop statements. The loop statements. So the conditional one is when there's a condition, and that condition needs to be met for the subsequent line to run or to be executed. And the loop is that when there's a criteria that I'd want to run our code over and over again. So I will set that criteria or that benchmark. When it's true, it will be running over and over again. So let us come to if and if else statements. So one of the VBA conditional statement is the if and the if else statement. So the if else statement is used to select from two or more options by means of a calculated or logical value. So that means that if I have my condition over there and I want to pick one of the options in there, it will pick the one which is true. So we have an example over here saying that if 2 is more than 3, then we'll put in our lines of code that will run if indeed 2 is more than 3. And we'll end our if by bringing the end if line after our VBA code statement. So if this 2 is more than 3 statement is indeed true, then those lines of code inside our if block will run. But if the line of code inside the if block is false, it will bypass the if block, go to the line of code after the end if block. And then also, there can be several if block in one function, or in one model. So the if blocks can be several in the same sub or function. And the syntax of the if block is that the if comes first, and the condition which I want to check will come after the if. After I am done with the condition, I'll bring my then. So since the if block mostly work with logical conditions, it mostly use less than, the greater than, the equal sign, less or equal to, or greater or equal to sign to compare two or more variables to check if it's true. And the ones in the code block will run. So that's how the if block work. So now we have the if else statement. So the if else statement is used to select an option from several options, just like the if option. So in here, it is a combination of several if statements into a single if statement. And for an if else statement, an else statement is used to select the last option from the list of items. Now, if let's say we have several conditions that need to be run or to be checked, or let's say we have several options that I am interested in, I will set my first option on the first line of the if block. That is in this case, if 2 is greater than 3. So if this condition is true, then my first code statement just before my end if line will run. But then if I have several options, so in this case, my next option is if 2 is less than 3. So if indeed 2 is less than 3, this code statement after our else if 2 less than 3 will also run. But then what if 2 is the same as 3? That is 2 equal 3. So that's the first if and else if line will be bypassed by our code, and it will come and pick the one in the else line. Since my first condition is false, that is if the A and B are the same, my second condition is also false, then it will bypass the first two and come and pick those code statements under our else block. That is in the if block. So I can either write several if blocks in one code model or in one procedure, be it a sub or a function, or I can lump them together in a single block with the else if statement. So in here, it could be if 2 is greater than 3, then I'll write my code statement and I'll end it with an end if. And after that end if, I'll define another if block that may read if 2 is less than 3, then and I'll put in my code blocks in there or my code statement and I'll end that second if. Or better still, I can write all those values in one if block by using the else if, and then the else for the last option or my last condition. So the simple if block has this as its flowchart. So let's say I have where it begins. This is my logical test. So if the test is false, it will either bypass it or it will select the false option. And if it is true, it will come straight to that which is just under the if statement. So in this case, if it is true over here, it will come and run the code statement just beneath the 2 greater than 3. And if this statement is false, it will bypass that code statement and come to the else if 2 less than 3. And also, if this statement is also false, it will bypass and it will come to the else block. Now, since the else has no condition attached to it, no logical line attached to it, if my first 2 are false, it will automatically pick the one in the else. If my first one is true, it will just pick this one and bypass all the rest of the code in the if block. So if the first one is true, it will bypass this line, and it will run the code that is after the end if. But then if my first is false and my second is true, it will bypass my first code statement and pick this code statement and bypass the else and also run after the end if. So just like how we have if we also have loops in VBA. So the loops are structures used to perform several calculations that needs to be done over and over again. And then loops are mostly used under certain conditions. So when the user wants to perform an iterative calculation, that is, if you want to run something over and over again, it's best to use the loop than to use an if or any other code block. And also, if the user wants to repeat a series of calculations for each value in the data sets or a list, so say that we have our variable x. So if I come to, let's say, this worksheet, and I define a variable, let's say in this case, I define s, and I say that I define a variable x, and I'm saying that my x is not just a single value, but an s contains 2, 3, 4, let's say 4, 5, and 6. So the x in here is an array that is of 5 values or 5 elements. So now if I want to loop through the s and select one particular value in the s, I'll use the for loop to pick that value that I am interested in. Since s is not just one value, but then a list of values in one variable. In the same way, if I have my variable y, that contains several values. So 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And 10. And let's say I want to select the values in this y variable that are even. So I'll use the loop to run through these y values and pick 4, 6, 8, and 10 from our 7 data values of the y variable. Now, in VBA, we have several loop structures. So there is the for next loop, there is the do loops, and we have the for each next loops. So if you look at the for next loop, so Our for next loop is used to counter, has one counter that runs to the counter reaches its set point. So this is an example of a for loop, of a for next loop. So we realize that in here, we have for I is equal to 1 to 10, and you run it till it gets to the next I. So what the for next loop does is, we have this counter variable, that in this case is the I. So it will run till the I moves through from 1 to 10. So if my I value is 1, it will, and I will get my xi, that is an I of 1 plus an xi value of I plus 1. So if my I is 1 for my first run, it will give me an x1 value of 1 plus 1. That will give us x1 of 2. Now, after this code line is run, it will come to the next I line. So in here, it will add 1 to our I, and I now becomes 2. And it will run this code statement in the for again. And it will come to the next I once again. And now my I becomes 2 plus 1, that is 3. And it will run the xi. So this code block will keep on running and running until our I gets to a value of 10. So the I gets to a value of 10. So by default, we have this thing called the step in the for loop. So the step by default is 1. And what the step means is, if I run my first value of my of the counter variable, that in this case is I, what value should I add to that first value to get my next value? So by default, that value is 1. So that if I is 1, I'll get my x of 1 to be 1 plus 1. And if I come here, it says next I. So the code will come back to the for loop. And in this case, it will add that our step of 1 to the first I value, that is 1. And now my I becomes 2. And it will give me the x at I of 2. And that'll be 2 plus 1. And it will come to the next I statement again. And I will come up here. So now my new I will be 2 plus that 1. So let us try an example in here. So I'll create a new model. And in the model, I'll add a new procedure. So I'll add a sub procedure. I'll make it public sub and I'll call it example 1. Now I'll click on OK. So in this sub, I want to add 1111 to the x, right? But first, since I have on top here option explicit, that means if I want to use any variable in my model, I should first define or declare that variable before I can use it in a sub or in a function. So as I am in this example 1 sub, I will define my models, my variables. So over here we have just I and x. So I have I. So I'll just dim I. So I'll dim I as an integer. And also, but then if you look at our x very clearly, it says x into bracket I. That means that if there are 10 I values, there will be x of 1 through to x of 10. That means the x is not just one value, but a list of values in that x variable. So x in this case is not, s in this case is an array. It's an array that contains several data values in there assigned to our s variable. So to dim an array to either the type integer, the type string, the type date, or the type double, we write that variable and we add brackets to it. So we open the swing bracket and we end the swing bracket. So I will dim the I as a double. So the x as a double. So my I is an integer and my x is a double. So in here, my s can house several values. I mean, from 1 to infinity, 1 to 10, 1 to 5. But you see, that makes it very hard for VBA to trace it. So it's best to set the limit of the values that will be in x. So since my I is from 1 to 10, that means I can say that my x values there will be 10 x values. So if that's the case, I will now rate them my x by specifying my number of values in the x. So I will rate them the x. So I'll say that my x will contain 10 values. So in this case, 1 through to 10. So x contain 10 values. So we have x1's value, x2's values, up to the s10 value. So my s contain 10 values. So I have read them the x with its limits or its set points from 1 through to 10. So and I bring my loop. So in the loop, that is for the for next loop, I have my for with my loop counter, that is the I. And we are saying that the I must be from 1 to 10, 1 through to 10. So and I'll terminate the loop by bringing my next I loop. So in this loop, I say that at every I value, my x at that point should be the I value plus 1. So if my I is 1, my x at that one will be 1 plus 1. If my I moves from 1 to 2, my x at 2, that is my second entry of the x array will be that 2 plus 1. If my I is 3, my third entry of the x array will be 3 plus 1. So in here, I like to print that value in
Hello.
our immediate window.
Good evening.
I like to print that value
Okay.
in the immediate window. So I will just enter my code statement, debug,
Batch. Yes.
debug.end. And since I want to print the x at that I position, I just say my x at the I. So if I run this code statement, if I run this, so I have my x value from 2 to 11. So this first value, that is the 2, means that my x at I of 1, so the x1, my first x entry, and it will move to the next I. So let's say I also want to show the I as I get my x. So I will just add another line over here. So let me just say I comma. So it will print not just the x at the I, but also the I. So run this, if I run this, I have my I on the left and my x values on the right. So my first I, that is the I of 1. I have my 1 here, and my x at that I is 2. My next I is the 2. So my x at that I of 2 is 3 in the order. So I get my I of 10, and the code will terminate. So if my I gets to that value at the right of the 2, it will terminate the for loop. To terminate the for loop. So that's the for next loop. But then also, we say that in this case, the loop went forward. So from my I value of 1 through to 10. Now, what if I want it to run backwards? So in this case, I will set it from I of 10 to the I of 1. From I of 10 to the I of 1. Now, since it is running backward, that means that if my first I value of 10 runs, my next should be 10 minus 1. So that I value will reduce to it get to 1 and the code will terminate. If not, it will run and it will never stop. So you terminate it on your own. So if I want that to happen, that means that I have to set the step value to be a negative value. In this case, it won't be adding, but rather subtracting. So if I have my I value from 10 to 1, by default, we have our step value of positive 1. But in here, I want it to be reducing. So my step will be negative 1. So I will just empty our immediate window and I'll run it again. So you see, we have it now like this. So our first I was 10. Now my next other I will be 10 plus 1. That is a value of 11. My next I, that is 10 minus 1, we have 9. So 9 plus 1 gives us a value of 10 for the x at the I. In that order, we have our I of 1 after it goes to this place. Our x at the 1 gives us 1 plus 1. That is 2. So that is the for next loop. So it just have this this counter variable that it will run until it's get to the exit point of the counter variable. Until it gets to the exit point of the counter variable. So let's proceed. Now, what if I am in the loop and I have got to a point where my condition have been met, though my I is yet to get to the point that it sets after the two statements. So let's say in this case I have my I of 1 to 10, but then if the I is 4, I want it to terminate or to break the loop. In this case, I will bring my if conditional statement and I will write just after the then an exit for VBA code statement. So this line of code will break the for loop and you step out of the for loop and go to the line just after the next I line. So let us try this. So let us say that if the I, so over here, if my I is 5, then so I'll just end the if with an end if, then exit 4. So if I run this right, it should give me I values for, let me set this from 1 to 10 and use that rather. So it will give me I values from 1 to 4. From 1 to 4. If I run this, you have I values from 1 to 4. Since on this line, I said that if the I is 5, it should break out of the loop. So after my I reaches that 5 value, it will break. So I of 1 will work, I of 2 will work, I of 3, I of 4 will work. But if the I get to a value of 5, it will terminate the loop or it will break the loop. So that's the for next loop. Now back to our our if conditional statement. So if I add a new sub or a new procedure, I'll call this example 2. And it's a sub, it's a public sub. I click on OK. So in this sub, I have two variables that I want to compare. Our variable A and variable B. And then both A and B are integers. So I will name them as such. So A as integer and B as integer. And let's say I'll add a third variable C. So C also as integer. So in this case, and let's say that our A is a value of 5. And so in VBA, if I want to write on the same line several things, I'll bring colon, right? Colon. So if my A is 5 and let's say my B is 3 and my C is 4, so colon, and my C is 4. So now I have A value, B value, and C value. So I want to create my if block over here. So if A is greater than B, then so I'm just end the end if here, and I'll come and write my encode statement in the block. So if A is more than the B, then print. So I'll use the debug.print to print true, right? But then what if? So else if. So else if B is rather more than B, more than A, then it will print false. So my debug.print. So print false. So if I run this code statement, if my first line is true, it will run just the true line and it will break out of the if. So let me clear my immediate window and let me run this code statement. So you see, it is true. Indeed, A is more than B. Since A is 5 and B is 3, this code line is true. So, like the for loop, if the first line of the if is true, it will just run that code statement that is just beneath it, and it will skip all the code statements in the if block. But if this one is false, it will jump to the next statement. So let's make A rather 3 and B 5. So I'll just clear this and let's run this and see. So if that is so, it will return a value of false since our first block in the if block is not true. So it will jump this and come to this, which is true. So that's how the if block works. If it is indeed true, it will return that which is just under that statement. If it is false, it will skip it and go to the next line of code. But in this case, we have the else if line. So if this line is also not true, it will skip this line and go to a different line in the same procedure. In this case, the same sub. So, and we have the do while loop. So from the for next loop, we have do while loop. So do while loops are used when you want to loop until some condition is met. So when I have this condition and I want to run my code statement or my code block, so it gets to that particular condition. So in this case, we have our s variable, and the s is assigned a value of 5. And in this code statement, we wish to add 1 to our x value as long as the x is less than 20. So if my x value gets to 20, this code line will break. So it says that do while the x is less than 20. And what should I do? I should do this s is equal to s plus 1 in the while loop. So if this line is true, it will run the x equal to x plus 1 line. So let us try that and see. So in our code model, I will insert a new procedure. I'll call it example number 3. I'll make it a sub and a public one. So I click on OK. So in this example, we have our s variable. So I'll just dim x, since it's an integer, I'll just keep it as such. So I dim x as integer. Now, our x was assigned an initial value of 5. And it says that we should add 1 to the x value until our add 1 to the x value as long as the x is not 20 or it is less than 20. So I'll just start by using my do while loop. So we have do while. So do while the x value is less than 20. So I will loop it. So it's just the do while and the loop will be beneath. I will there. So what should I do? I should add 1 to all the x values. So we have do while x less than 20. That is the x equals to x plus 1. So I'll print this in our immediate window. So debug dot print. So I'll print the x. So if I clear this value from our immediate window, let me make it clearer. So we have this as example 3. So if I run the example 3, it will print our x value to s get to 20. So we have our first x in this case was 6 because of the print line is just under our x plus 1. If my print line was before the x plus 1, I'll get an x value. I'll get 5 to 19. Hopefully. Let us run and see. So here we have 5, 2 to 19. We have 5, 2 to 19. So based on where my print line is, I might get different value as outputs. Now, we can also print to our worksheet. We can also print from our code environment to the worksheet environment. So let us say in this worksheet, let's say this is sheet 5, right? So this is the active sheet. That is sheet 5. I want to print my X values onto the sheet 5 from our VBA environment. So if I want to do that in this sub, that is example 3 sub, as I get all the values of the of the X, I will assign those values to cells in the same column, in my sheet 5. So if this is my active cell, I'll get my X values in these cells coming down. So I think the X is 52 to 19. I think there will be about 14 or 15 values. So I'll select a cell to start working with. Okay, let us first do with the for I loop, the for next loop first, and see what we get. So that same procedure, we are testing it here in the for next loop. So we have our active column in column C, and we start by the cell C1, cell C1, cell C1. So I would say that so my cell C1 is in the first row on the third column. ABC is a column 3 in our VBA environment. So it's in the column 3. So now, since I'll be changing my row number, right, because it is supposed to be in the same column. So I will say that my C1 plus I, why am I saying that? If the I changes, it will move to the next cell. So I want to put in those values in the cells that comes after the active cell. So cells I plus 1, comma, column 3, since it's the same column, is equal to xi. So if I run this, it will print our x value that is from 2 to 11 in the cells. So if you go back to our worksheet, we have this. So you see, we have our values of the x in the cells C2 to C11. I can also make here, let me just clear this. If I make here C just CI, and then if the I is 1, it means that it is the first row in the third column. If the I is 2, it's the second row in the third column. So if this is run, it will start from the first row. So we have this 2 to 11. So if I have done any projects in VBA and I want to send that result into the worksheet, I can use this approach to export my result from the VBA environment onto my Excel application worksheet. Right. So let's proceed. So in the do while loop, we also have the do until loop. Now, the do until loop works in the same fashion as the do while loop. Just that in that case, the loop will run until a particular condition is met. So until a condition is met. So if I copy this code statement and I change my subtitle, so I'll change it to example 4. And in here, I'll say that do until. So I'll say that do until the x is equal to 20. That means this code line will run until the x get to 20. So we have 19. Are we there? So if if I bring my debug line after our x equal to x plus 1 line, I get my input x value up to 20. So I have it over here. So we have from 6 through to the value 20. So the do while loop and the do until loop works in the same fashion. They work in the same fashion. So now let's say we have this simple example. So we have list of gases. We have air, we have CO2, we have CH4, and we have water. And we have the heat capacity coefficient of the gas. So gas air has its own A, B, C, D. Gas CO2 has A, B, C, D. Gas CH4 has A, B, C, D. And our gas H2O has its own A, B, C, D. And our purpose is to get our function that accepts the gas type or the gas name and accepts the temperature value and give us the heat capacity of the gas, that is the CP value of the gas. So we have our function to be Cp equals to A plus D times T plus Tt squared plus Dt cubed. So if I choose air as my gas, it must pick the A of air, the B of air, the C of air, and the D of air. And with the specified T in the function, I'll get my Cp of air at the T. If I choose carbon dioxide, that is CO2, it should automatically pick the A of CO2, B of CO2, C of CO2, and D of CO2. And with the T that I've specified, I should get my Cp value of the CO2 and the T. So since we have gases with its own A, B, C, D values, we will employ the if conditional statements to solve this problem. So the if block. So now we write the code such that if the specified gas is air, it will pick the A, B, C, D of air. If the specified gas is CO2, it will jump the air line and then come and pick the CO2 line. If the gas in question is CH4, it will jump the CO2 line and come to the CH4 line. If I put in H2O, it should jump the air line, the CO2 line, the CH4 line, and then pick the A, B, C, D of the H2O and apply it in the Cp equation with the T and return my Cp value. So let us get into our VBA environment. So I want to create a function, a simple function. So I come here, I click on procedure, I click on the function itself, and I call it Cp calc. So this function just solve our Cp of the gas we will specify at a given temperature. So I click on OK. Now, this function by default has no inputs. So if I look at this, I have our function name and I have a blank bracket here. That is, there is no input. But since I'll be filling in our gas name and our temperature value of the gas, then that means I have to put in some input in the function. So let us say that I will type in the name of the gas as it is, and that means it is of the type string data type. So I would say I would dim my gas in the function as a string. So dim gas as string, comma. And since my T, I'll put it in as a number. I'll dim it either as an integer, that is just whole number, or as a double. That can be positive, it can be a root, it can be anything, it can be pi. Let me just put T as double. And since my result of the function will be a number, if I put in my A, B, T, C, and D, it will give me a number. I would dim this entire function also as a double, since I will get a number from the functions, the functions execution, right? So I'll dim it as a double. So we are there. So this is our function with two inputs, the gas name and then our T. So let me just use capital G, and let me add underscore name. So gas name, and then our temperature, that is T. So since in the function itself, we have several variables. We have A, B, C, D, and the T. And since I'll be feeding in my T in the function, I don't have to define the T in our function again. So now I have A, B, C, D as unknown variables. So if I want to use that, I have to name it in the functions procedure. So I will name my A as a double. I'll name my B as a double. I'll name my C as a double. And I'll name my D also as a double. So this comes the interesting part. Now, if my gas name is A, is to pick the E of A, that is 28.94 times 10 power minus 3, and the B, C, D as such. So I'll bring my if block. So if my gas name, so gas name is A. So now note something. If I type this A in lower cases, it will only see A in lowercase. If I type the A in uppercase, it will only see A in uppercase. So I will type it in uppercase in this case. So A. So if my gas name that I will feed into the function is A, that is A in uppercase letters, right? Then I'm just end the if here. So if that's the case, my A is going to be 28.94 exponents minus 3. So 0.94 times 10 exponents minus 3. Now, in VBA, if I want to raise any number to a power, that is with this sign or with this symbol, it is best to leave a gap between our base number and the power, and then also between our power and the number that I have raised. So we have 28.94 times 10 power minus 3. That is for the A. So I'll write the B on the same line. So I'll bring my column. So B. So B for the A is 0.4147 exponent minus 5. So 0.4147 times 10 power minus 5. So I have my B also here. So I'll add my C to it. C is 0.3191 exponents minus 8. So C is 0.3191 exponents minus 8. And my last variable is the D. So D is minus 1.965 times 10 power minus 2. Minus 12. So I think I'll do for only 2 of them. So I have my A defined, B defined, C and D defined. So else if my gas name. So now if the gas name is the CO2, so if my gas is the CO2, right, I'll bring mine then. So in this case, I'll define my A, B, C, and D for the CO2 under the else if gas name equals to CO2 line, right? So since I'll just copy this whole thing and then change it like that. So for my CO2, gas name is 36.11, or A is 36.11, 36.11. The same thing, B is 4.233. The B is 4.233. C is minus 2.877. 887, sorry. Minus 2.887. Minus 2.887. And the D is positive 7.464. So positive 7.464. So that is for the gas CO2. So we have 2 last gases to go. So gas name So if I have my gas name CH4, then so I'll define my ABCD for the CH4. So I'll just change the names, change the variable values. So for CH4, we have 34.31. 34.31 for A. We have B of 5.469. We have C of 0.3661. And we have D of minus 11. So now I can either just use the else or I can say else if. So if now my gas name is the water, right? I think that yes, it's the water. So H2O. Then, so I'll now specify my E out to D of the water. So I'll change my A values here. So water is 33.446. So 33.46. The B for water is 0.688. We have 0.7607. So I can equally just, okay, 7607. And my D is minus 3.593. Minus 3.593. So now I have my if block that contains the A, B, C, D values of the gases in question. So after I have obtained my A, B, C, D values, I'll now input them in the function, that is the CP function. But note that in VBA, if I want our function to return an output or a result, I should assign my last line just before the end function statement. That value there, I should assign it to the CP calc. That in this case is the function name. So if let's say I want to return 2 as my function output or the function result, I will assign 2 to our function name. So since in this case, I want to return A plus B times the T plus CT squared plus DT cubed. That means I will assign this equation, its value, to the CP, which in this case is the function name. So I will assign the function name to here CP calc. So we have A plus B times T plus C times T. So since it's a square, I'll leave a gap. I'll bring my hat and I'll bring the 2. Or I can do C times T times T. So it will just be TT and that will just become a square. So plus D times T cube, right? So I have my CP calc function over here. So if I call this function in the worksheet or in any step, it should give me my CP of the gas at the specified temperature value. So let us call this in the worksheet itself. So in here, let's say let me just click on CP calc. So it will show here. So let me just click on this. So if I click on this, we have our function dialog popping up here. So since I have only a CO2, CH4, and then H2O as a gas in the function, let me specify A. So if my T is 345, I have my CP value to be 0.030669. So if at the same T value, I specify for water, you see I have 0.03659. If I specify for CO2, yeah, it says 0 coming. CO2. Yes, so we have 0.04758. So based on the gas in the function, it will return a different value for the CP at the same temperature value, at the same T value, at the same T value, at the same T value in the question. So that answers it. So the if block can be used for several things. This is the least thing it can be used for. There are several things that it can be used for in a function or in a sub. In a function or in a sub. Then click on OK. So let us now do what we did on the user form. So if I come to insert, it can be used. So if I come to the insert, tab over here, I click on this and I insert a user form. Now we have a form. So I want to perform my if on the form. So on the form, I can add several things to it. But since I have 4 gases, I'll put those gas values or those gas names in a combo box. But then I want it to look a little nicer. So let us adjust it a little. I'll add a frame to this. So to make it a little nicer. So I'll just be adjusting it to a frame. And I want the property, but mine is not showing. So let me just click here, property windows. So this frame, I'll change our caption to input. Right. Now leave it as this. So I'll add a second frame. That will give me the output of the values. So let me just copy this and readjust it. So I'll just copy the first frame and I'm adjusting it in the same user form. So the top property of the frame will shift it up a little. The left will push it to the right or to the left of the user form. So let me shift this one also up. Here our top is 126. Let's make it 120. Let's go up. Let me say 116. Okay, this is enough. So I'll change this captions, this one's caption to results. So since I'll need 2 inputs, one for our gas name and the other for our gas temperature value, I'll just select a label over here. Now click the label on the user form. And let's say I'll call this the gas. So let's say select gas. And I'll bring this. So I want my test to be aligned to the right. So I'll just come here, just align. I will select this align to right. It's not showing. So okay, align right is the last option. So now my tests are aligned to the right. But then these fonts are very small for me. So let me increase the font size. So I'll just click on the 3 arrows here and I'll select type 410. Yeah. Okay. This looks okay. Let me also stretch this a little. Yes. So I have this. Now I'll do one for temperature. But since I have this, I can just copy it to this place and I'll change the caption. So temperature. So it must be in Kelvins, right? I have it like this. This is a little too close to the wall. Okay. So this is better. Let me readjust my user form. So now I want to put in my gas as a list in the combo box. So I'll come here and look for combo box. I'll click on it and I'll drop it on the user form. So in this box, I'll just align it properly and I'll change the font type or the font size if need be. So I will change the font size. I'll set this one also to 12. and I just increase this height a little bit. So let me just say a height of 20. Yes. So I'll enter my temperature value in a text box. So I'll add a text box to the temperature label. So I'll do the same as I did for the combo box. So I want it to be aligned, perfectly aligned, and a height of 20, a font size of 12. So let's try. If I run this and I click on this drop down, since I've not added any gas to it, it will give me a blank combo box. It is blank. But if I enter this, it will enter. So I'll just close this. And since this one is a little longer, I'll readjust. So okay, this works well. So to add my gas names to our combo box, I'll go to my form loading events. That's in VBA, is the initialization event. So I'll double click on the user form and my form model will open. So in the form model, I'll go to the form events. That is our user form event. So it is mostly at the top right of the model. So it is here. Now I'll click on this drop down and select initialize. So that means if the form pops up, I'll have my gas values on my gas names in the combo box and I'll select from there. I can also set some default values in this form event. So let us say that I want to add my gas name, argon, storage, air, CO2, CH4, and H2O. So I'll use the combo box 1. So our box name in the user form is combo box 1. Let's confirm. So if I select the combo box 1, it has a name called combo box 1. So back into our form events. Let me clear this line. So I can also easily see our objects on the user form by starting with me. And so the me is the form object. So if I enter me and I bring a dot, it will give me my form properties and the form controls. So over here, I have my combo box 1, which is on the user form. So I can equally select it from here and then add my items. So dot add items. So I'll add my first item is the air. So air in capital. I'll also add a different one. So I can just do 4 of this. So air, carbon dioxide, methane, and water. Right. And then, so if I run this and I click on this drop down, I have my air, my carbon dioxide, water, and methane in the combo box list, in the combo box. But then I want one of the names to show if the form pops up. If I want to do that, I'll close this. And in this same form event, after I have defined the items to be inserted in the combo box, I'll select one item to show if the form opens. So I'll just call it, so it is the same idea, but then in here, I want the text on the combo box. So box 1.text. So that text should be air. So it's said that if it pops up, it will show air in the combo box 1. So if I click on run session, I have air. So if I click on this drop down, I still have all the other 3. I'll be there. So we are not done. So let's our results. So it must be the heat capacity. So heat capacity in what value? So let's check over here. Okay, so our question didn't specify, but let's assume that it's in joule per mole Kelvin. So in a value of so joule per mole Kelvin. Since these values are too long, I have to extend our box a little. Or better still, I can reduce my font type for our results label. So let me make it 12. Okay, this works. Then it's best I bolding it to match the address. And then just bolding it. And then make it 11 then. Okay. So we have this. And let me also extend our new text box to it. Yeah. And then drag it a little to the left. Okay. So if I run this, you have this form showing in my Excel application. So I can choose my gas from the drop down over here. And after that, I'll enter my gas temperature value. And I'll add my command button over here. After which, if I click on it, I'll get my heat capacity value in joule per mole Kelvin. So let's just close this. So I'll look for command button. It is here. I add it to our user form. So I can change how it appears, its color, its caption. So I'll just enter solve on it. So solve. So now, this is combo box 1. This is test box 1. This is test box 2, right? Let me bring this thing. Okay. Let me add one of it to this part. Oh. So I'm just adjusting our form to make it a little nicer. Yeah. Okay, this still works. So now I'll call my CP calc function into our user form. After which, if I click on solve, it will produce our CP value and this heat capacity text box over here. That is text box 2. So let's just close that. But if I come back to the model, since our function is a public function, I can call it throughout any location in the VBA project, right? So let's come back to the form. If I click on this, now since it will take our value, that is our value of the gas name as a text or as a string, and a T value as a double, that means that if I ask for the value from the text box 1, I should convert it to a double type value and use that value in the CP calc function. And if I select from the list of gas names, it will also give me the name of the gases so that it will match the name in the CP calc function. So if I come here in our command button one-click event, I will say that, so I will dim my T as double and my CP also as double, right? So since my T is in text box 1, I say that T is equal to convert to double CDBL, that value which is in text box 1. So me dot text box 1 dot text. So it will take that value in the text box 1 and convert it to a double type value, right, in VBA. But then one thing is that since the gas names in the function, that is our CPCalc function, here we have air in uppercase, we have CO2, CH4, and then H2O for our gases. But in the user form, we specify the full name of the gas, except yes, we have our carbon dioxide, methane, and water. But in the function, it is air, CO2, CH4, and H2O. That means we will bring an if condition over here, so that if the text in the combo box is air, it will actually use the air AIR as it was in the CP function. If the text in the combo box is methane, it will use the CH4 as was used in the CPCalc function. And if the text was water in the combo box 1, it will assign H2O to our CPCalc function and use it in the calculation. So let us proceed. So I will create an if condition on the text in the combo box 1, such that if that text is the air, it will just use it as it is. But then if the text in the combo box 1 is methane, it will change it to CH4 and put it in the function. Are we there? So if our so me dot combo box 1 dot text is air, right? So then our CP value is, so it is CP calc, right? So it's just the air and our T value. But then else if, so else if that value in the combo box 1 is carbon dioxide, then it should put CO2 in the CP calc function. So I will assign CO2 into the CP calc function with my T. Not only that, if my value in the text box, in the combo box 1 is methane, then our CP should, so we have CH4, comma T. And the last one, else if the combo box 1 value is water, then our CP, the CP calc function, use the H2O, the T. Let me just end the if. So this is the code block, that is the if block that's loop to our values in the combo box 1, and it will assign each corresponding value that fits for the CP calc function we defined in the model 1. So this is the function once again. In the function, it can only take gas names, that is the air as AIR, and it can take CO2, that is for carbon dioxide. It can take methane, but then only as CH4. It can take water only as H2O. I can assign the full water to it, but then only its formula, right? So the CO2 as a formula, the CH4 as a formula, and then the H2O as a formula. But in our user form, in the combo box 1, we have the actual names of the compound, and that might not work well for us. So we will use the if block to look through the names and then select our compound formulas and insert them into the CP calc function. So after getting my CP from the if block, I will say that now I will assign that CP value to the value to our text box too. So I can say me.textbox2 dot text is the CP value, right? So let us run this and see. So if I run this value, if I run this sub, and I assign, okay, we have chosen a, so let us do the same example as on the worksheet. Here we have CO2 at 345 Kelvin. So if I select carbon dioxide at 345, and I click on solve. So if you compare, we have the same heat capacity value as we had when we called the function in the worksheet. So I can call a function in VBA either on the worksheet, in a sub, in a new function, or on a user form or in a user form. So I can select a different air I have over here. I can select methane I have over here. I can select water I have over here, right? So if I change my gas or the value of the T, it will reflect in the heat capacity text box. So that is one use of the if block in the user form. So same thing can be done for the for loop and all. So now let us look at the ActiveX control. Like how we have text boxes and command box and command button, and then our ribbon button, our list box, our combo box. In the VBA environment, we can also have them in the SL environment. That is our default SL environment. So in this case, if I want to use them in the SL, but then not to come and use them on the user form, I'll come to our developer tab. So I'll look for developer tab. Look for developer tab. So it is here. So let me just use a different worksheet. So it is here. In this tab, I'll go to our controls group. That is this group over here. And I'll look for inserts. And I'll click on this drop down in inserts. And I have several options. So we have two different controls that I can use on worksheets. We have the form controls and the ActiveX controls. Both work the same way. But the form controls, if you like to use it, it's best to have its macro or its sub already defined in the VBA environment, and you will link it to the form control. But our ActiveX control works otherwise. I can use the controls on the worksheet and later on go and write the code that will be applied when I change or click on them. So in our ActiveX control, we have our command button, that is ActiveX command button. We have combo box, ActiveX, checkbox, list box, text box itself. We have our spin button, we have ribbon or option button, we have a label, we have image, we have our toggle button, and then this one says more controls. So I can add to my ActiveX control if I have them in my SL application. So we will do some few examples with it. So if I want to add some controls to my worksheet, and I don't want to go to the user form and add it over there, but then I want them on this worksheet and worksheet alone. So let us say that I have some data over here. Let's say Renault, right? So let me just say types of flow. So flow type. So flow type. So now, as we all might agree, for flow type, it might be laminar, turbulence, or translational, right? This, I think I will take only the first two, laminar or turbulent. So let us assume that our flow may be laminar or it may be turbulent, right? So, but then I want to put this two flow types in a combo box on the worksheet so that I won't have to use my form control to do that. But then in the worksheet, I'll have that control in here. So I just click on design mode to make edits to our controls in the worksheet. I come to insert. So I want them to be in a combo box. So I click on combo box over here, and I'll look at any location that I want it to be. I want mine to be on the cell B2 that is here. I'll click it over here, cell B2. So in the cell B2, so in the cell B2, I have my combo box control embedded in the worksheet, right? But then if I click out of the design mode and I check to see if anything is in there, it's giving me a blank block. But if I want to add all the values that it should display into it, I have to go to my VBA environment and do it over there, and it will reflect in the worksheet environment. So if I want to do that, I will just go to my code model. Note that this is in sheet 6. So I'll just go to my VBA environment, and since it is on sheet 6, I'll come to my sheet 6. So in sheet 6, if I click on this top left corner in the model sheet 6, we have combo box 1, right? So if I come here, I can make any changes that I want to have on my box over here. But then if I want to show my laminar and my turbulence text or words in the combo box, I have to add it to my worksheet change event. Why am I saying that? Such that if I come to this worksheet and I come back over here, it will be in here, and it will stay in here till I go and change it over there. Are we there? So like what was done on the form, it must be done on the active object that is on it. Like the form, I need our combo box values on the form control. So in the worksheet also, I'll do my same box on the sheet control. So in this worksheet control, I'll look for the event and I'll click on activate. So if I come to this worksheet, it should add some few things to our combo box 1, and I'll work on it there. So I'll just click on activate. So in the activate, so in my activate worksheet, I will now type in what I want in my combo box control here. So I will say that I will the same approach me dot combo box 1 dot add item, right? So I'll add laminar and I'll add turbulent. Same thing, me dot combo box 1 dot add item, and I'll add my turbulent. So I can add several items over here, several of them if need be. So after I'm done with this, I can go back to my worksheet, and let's say I'll come here and I'll come back here. So if I click on this, you have it in here, laminar and turbulent in my combo box on the worksheet, right? So if I select this, it will show in the combo box. If I select this, it will show in the combo box. So that's how to work in the worksheet with the same controls that were on the user form. I can imprint them on the worksheet. Please, any question? Okay. So let me just clear this. So now I want you to show my type of flow. That is, if I select in the combo box one, it will show that flow type in my cell B4, right? So the goal now is to just be changing how it will look. If I change any value in the combo box, it reflects in the cell B4. So I have colored the cell B4 yellow. So let us see. If it changes, how will it affect our... Okay. So now, if if I want to affect how the cell B4 changes after I have made any selection in the combo box one control. So note this is cell B4. So I'll come to my sheet one model, and since I want to work on combo box, I just select combo box. So this will happen. And I have its event on the far right. So I can select any of the events. But then since I want to see how it will affect the other cells, I'll click on change. So if I change it, it will affect it as I will. So let's see. So now, so now, so now, I'll just say that my range of the B4, that is, that value should be the value of the combo box one, right? So I'll go back to my worksheet, and let's say that if I change this, it will change our cell B4. So it will change in that order. So I can cause my worksheet controls to interact with my worksheet as I please. As I please. So you can work this and try it out for several other items. For several other items. Okay. For several other items. So let us check something in our form one, right? So in the form one, when I was adding our values in the combo box one, I click on the user form and the initialization event, that is the top right of the model. I click on the drop down and I selected initialize. So what this means is that if the form shows for the first time, what I've set in this sub will be displayed on the user form. So in this sub, I said that for my combo box one, I'll add air, I'll add carbon dioxide, I'll add methane, and I'll add water. And also, after I have added all the four name of gases, I want to show air as the value that will be displayed in the combo box one. Over there. So this is that sub that will do that for us. So we have me.combo box one add items. That is to add any item to our sub, to our user form via the combo box. Via the combo box. So back to our worksheet. So I can also add our command button controls to the worksheet. So I can choose over here, command button. Okay. So if I want to change the text on this, I'll just click on properties and it will show it over here. So I can change the name, the caption. So let me just say sub, right? So I have sub over here. So I can change how it appears, my font and everything as it was done on the form control, on the form object. So I'll just leave it as it is and I will leave my design mode. So if I want to make any changes to our command button on the sheet 6, that is on this worksheet, I'll just do as I did for combo box 1. I'll go to my VB environment and I'll go to the sheet 1 model. So in the sheet 1, I'll click on the top left menu on the model. I'll select combo box 1. Sorry, I'll select command button 1. That was its name. So if I want to change anything that pertains the command button, I can check the event which I want to effect. So we have before drag over, before drop or paste. We have click, we have double click, we have error. There are several of them over here. But then since I want to effect a click event, I'll just click on the click. So if I click on the command button in my worksheet, it should show that which I will write in the sub command button 1 underscore click. So let us say that if I click on that button, it should show me a message. So I will sort that message in the message box. I will sort that message in the message box. So let's say that I'll name something. I'll name a variable A. So that A is a double variable. Now I assign A to 4500, right? And let's say that I want to display my A value. So I'll just type msg box. Now this is the function for message box. But then this msg box actually accepts several inputs. So we have our prompts. We have buttons as VB message box style. We have the title. We have help file and we have context, right? So we will look at the first 3 inputs, that is the prompts, the buttons, and the titles. So if I want to input a prompt, now this prompt is just what will show in the message box. And then a button. So I can either say that I want an OK button, a yes or no button, a true or false button, and so on. And then also I can set title to our message box so that I can either show error, show information, show about on top of the message box. So to put in a prompt, I'll quote it as a text or as a string character. So I'll just put it inside this quote. So let's say that I will say the value of A is equal to, right? So if I want to go to the next input, that is the button that I want to show, I'll click comma after the prompt. So it will move from the prompt to the buttons. Now, by default, there are several options to choose from that comes to the VB buttons. So we have VB abort, retry, and ignore. So I will skip that for now. We have VB application model, VB critical. So if I select this option, it will add an image to our message box. That image is going to be the critical image that something is at fault. That is if I click on the VB critical. So let us say that, let me do it again. I want to show an information button, that is an I. So I'll just look for VB information. So I can add several buttons to it with the aid of a plus sign. So plus, and my bottom list will pop up. So I want to add OK and cancel. So I'll select VB OK cancel. And now I'm done. To me, that's enough. So I'll just click on comma to move to the next input of the message box. And in here is the title. So and my V and my it will ask for the title of the message box, right? So I'll put it as I quoted the prompt. So I'll just put this too. So I'll say that information. So I'll just show information as my title for the message box. So if I leave this place and I go back to my environment and I click on the message box, that is our solve command button to be shown. So we have it as shown below. So we have this. So you see we have our two buttons, that is the OK and the cancel button. We have our image for the information, VB information. We have our prompt, that is our string, also over here. So now, if I want to add several information to it, so now I highlight the A value is this. So let me just add the A value here, 4500. If I click on run, it will still run for me in this case. But then what if I want to add another line to the message that I want to display in the Excel application window? I'll use our VB new line command to move to the next line. So how do we do that? I'll bring an end identifier or letter, that is the end on your keyboard, and I'll add my command VB new line, and I'll bring an end after that. And in here, I'll put another prompt. So if you look at the input right here, it is still in the prompt. It's yet to move to the other input, that is the button. So I am still in the prompt, so I can still put in more information to show in the message box. So I'll just enter this is a new line, and I'll click on one. So you see, now I have this is a new line on the next line after the first line. So I can do this and add several lines to my message box, several buttons to the message box, and also set some other properties to the message box. So we have other ones. We have the checkbox as was said earlier in the user form control. The same thing is done here. So if I add this, I can change. Okay, this appears very long. So I can change that which will show in the checkbox by clicking on the property window and changing my caption. Just say make a selection. Make a selection. I click on enter. I think it is best I externally selected. So if I click out of this and I click on this, so you see I can select and deselect the checkbox. The same can be said about our ribbon or our option, but if I add anything to it, and this same are the checkbox, and the same is to the label. So ActiveX control has its own strength, and in some cases, it's best to put them on the worksheet. But if the user wants to do something more more complex, it's best to work them on the form and then put them on the ribbon or in the tabs for anybody to work with. Thank you very much. Please, any questions? Please, any questions? So there are several of them that I can add to it and work on. There are so many things to do in here. So I can add a lot and a lot. I can add new models, new user form, new procedures, advanced models. So this is a sample Excel-based application that was designed by the modeling class to help in thermodynamics. So it just forms joined together to form a single application. So if I come here, it is called database. So if I click on this, it will pop up a form. In this form, this over here is the late view, right? This in here are my compounds. If I set through the compound, so let's say I want methane, I can set for methane, and it will show me all the compounds that in here contain methane as a word. So if I click on methane and I click on view, it will show me several information about the methane. So by coming over here, I can see its weight, its boiling point, and several information. I can see its CP information as we did over here, its Antoine constant, and several of them. I can also search by formula. So here I search by name. So I can search by a formula. So if I select this and I want to search for methane, CH4, that will not be easy. So okay, it was easy. So if I select this and I click on view, I still have that same information that I saw when I searched with the compound name. And over here, this is a search button for searching commands, a compound. So let's say I want to work on two compounds, methane and hexane. I'll just enter this compound name over here in my search compound box for methane, and I'll choose methane on my list, and I'll add it to my window for simulation. I'll do the same thing for the hexane. I'll select hexane by entering its name in the search compound box, and I'll click on it and add it to my simulation window. So after I'm done, I'll export this compound to the worksheet by clicking here. So you see, I am exporting it to the worksheet. I click here, I click on any cell, I click OK. So it's on the worksheet now. So I can click on edit. So let's say that in this system, our methane is 30%, our hydrogen is 70%. And since it's a mixture, I want find for its its progressive coefficient. So I'll select that button in my ribbon. It asks me to select my system component. So I'll look for the cells that contain them, my system fractions, that is molar fractions, and I'll leave this one blank. I'll set my T to be 350 Kelvin and my pressure to be 2 bar. So you see, these are the combo bots over here. We have Celsius, Fahrenheit, Kelvin, and Rankine for the temperature scale. We have bar, Pascal, APA, ATM, mmHg for our pressure scale. So if I click on solve, it will show those values over here. So this is like the relevance of the VBA. It can be used to create your own or in the commercial custom method application.
Okay.
That can be specific. Please, is there any question on what we have done so far? Please, is there any question? Is there any question? Okay, so if there is no question, thank you very much for your time. Have a lovely time with VBA. And do well to join the modeling club if you get a chance to. All the best.